Hello, everyone. I am Heidi Ferguson, and next to me is Fresta Ramsey, and this is Fierce, Honest Hearts. So we're coming to you today. It's the middle of August already, and I feel like summer's coming to an end, and we had a few days of some pretty decent weather, so I was really welcoming that. Yeah, so let me start with a little bit of a check-in. I've been, I feel like I've been on this ride where I've been feeling really good and my mental health is clear. And yeah, I feel like I've been riding this for a while and I'm really happy about that. And, Fresh and I were talking yesterday, and I had shared with her that I had family come over the weekend, and one of the most challenging relationships that I've been working on throughout my life is that with my mother. And because I have done a ton of work on myself, really hard stuff, but important stuff, I've gotten to a place where I'm creating ease and I'm changing the narrative of our relationship. And that feels really good. And so, she's been back on the East Coast since end of April, beginning of May. And our visits this summer have been really sweet. And there have been no really tension-filled times or anything like that. And so I actually look forward to seeing her and to spending time with her. Yeah, so I'm feeling the ease of that. And I want to also mention that when we show up differently, that energy, it permeates, and there are a lot of tentacles to it. And I feel like, I don't want to say it forces other people to show up differently, but it certainly has an impact. It has a huge impact for others to show up differently. So, which, we've talked about, with authentic relating. And yeah, and I would say that's probably one of the most important and biggest impacts that you've had on me. And I mean, we can go, we don't need to, but we can go down that road. I feel like we've talked about this a lot, but it's really true, you know. And I'm so appreciative of it. And I know that I've said that before, but I feel like it can't be said enough because it's been a game changer for me in a lot of different ways. So yeah, so that's my check-in. And the other thing that I wanted to add is that, so this background is a piazza. I'm not sure, actually, I think it's Piazza Navona in Rome. And I spent 6 months there. This is not a photograph of mine, but I spent 6 months there in the first 6 months of 1996. And best trip of my life, best experience of my life on a million different levels. So my dream, it's on my bucket list to go back. And I think I will. I believe that I will. So anyway, that's my check-in. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. I feel so nourished hearing both the quality of relationship that you're able to cultivate from having done the inner work, right? Not expecting the other person to change, though sometimes I know that's my MO sometimes, but being like, what can I do differently to maintain sanity, like real peace, and to have some connections, meaningful connections. That feels really nourishing to me to hear. And I appreciate you just naming that our friendship has created some of that impact, though I know your spiritual path has absolutely informed you as well. And then I love this idea of just like the places you've lived, just getting to see the piazza, the square, and imagining both when you say like the best trip of your life. That feels, I get curious there. I want to hear more. And then the idea of wanting to go back. So I'm like, I will be packed in your suitcase when you do. I am down. It's just wonderful to have that, to hold that dream. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So noticing the part of me that's settling with you into this container from a pretty busy day. And I have been so struck by the clouds today. I know that sounds super simple, but from the time I woke up this morning till now, they have just been like those beautiful kind of almost cascading storm clouds that just never quite drop anything, right? But they're swirlier. They seem like, you know, when you see those like hurricane clouds and you're like, ooh, what's going on over there with nature? It's been a really like juicy part of my day to kind of keep an eye on how they're shifting. And I notice in that how much I love nature, how much I love the unfolding that's happening. Just a really big part of what nurtures me. Yeah, so that feels good to name. I'm watching like bees and the basil flowers and just like life happening in nature in a natural way. And then I was, you know, sharing with you without like really harping on anything, just how interesting it is to have different kinds of minds and triggers and mentalities around things, how people relate or don't relate with us, and what you brought up. Just such a gift to constantly be reminded of. I don't think I could be reminded of it enough, is don't take anything personally. That will forever be a living meditation for me, that I remember and then I forget and then I remember, because I think as someone who's really sensitive, when someone's unhappy with me or I've hurt them or I've just, you know, like I've missed them unintentionally, I do kind of go, right? And my work has been being able to hear it, not get into like a shame monster spiral about it, and then provide empathy. That's what I'm learning today, is if I get stuck in my shame spiral, I don't have access to my empathy. And that's not going to work in my relationships, right? If I'm like, oh, woe is me, and the other person's over there going, yo, I just shared something with you. And it's not that I don't want to be compassionate and empathic. My nervous system can get in the way. Right? So just that distinction of like, not like whatever, but there is like, oh, I'm now dealing with my perceived shame. And how do I take that like half a second before that happens to actually just tend to the person across from me without taking it too personally? I don't know if I have an answer for that, but I think that's my goal. It's more often than not to just tend to someone's feelings without making it mean anything about me. Because as we've said, it's people's projections, their stories, maybe even their history. And that feels healthy.
Yeah.
Just to be like, oh man, I didn't mean to come across as critical. I didn't mean to not appreciate you there. Like, I see that, I see where that hurts you. But letting it be, yeah, I mean, you get what I mean, letting it be on their side of the street.
Yeah.
And just attending.
Right.
That's my check-in for now. I know we'll get into more, but I would love to know a little bit more about why that piazza back there and that trip was the best trip of your life.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, I knew that I wanted, like, all through college, I knew that at some point I wanted to study abroad. And I wanted the experience to be, how can I say this? Like completely my own. So I didn't want anyone from my college here in the United States to be at the school. I wanted to be really a very clean and clear experience for me. And so I was working in the president's office at my alma mater, and Dr. Gallagher, at the time, he was on the board of trustees at John Cabot, this school that I ended up going to in Rome. And so I mentioned to him, I just said, tell me about John Cabot. Because I mean, I had read some literature, but I also wanted, you know, a person's real perspective about it. And of course, he had been to Rome a million times to, you know, for the job and all that kind of thing. And he's vacationed there and blah, blah, blah. So he had nothing but praise to say about the city itself and then the school. And he said, just to give you some perspective, it is probably the size of, and he named one of the buildings on our campus because it's a really tiny school. Like it's probably, I think in the graduating class that year, there were 30 students. Like it's a tiny school. And at the time that I was going, I think there were 5 majors. So very, very small. And it was 50% international, 50% English speaking. Well, was it 50% American? It wasn't. It was probably like, anyway, there's 50% international, probably 30% Italian, and then 20% American. But still really small numbers. Okay. So, you know, I was really glad to have him as a connection, as a connector, because he was just someone who, he's someone who will see you 10 years later and remember your name, right? He's just one of these people who really believes in others and wants the best for them and blah, blah, blah. And he was so excited to have someone from the school that I was at, my alma mater, going to John Cabot, because no one had ever expressed interest in going to John Cabot because they only had 5 majors, right? And of course, and my major was not one of them, but I was just thinking, I can take all of my electives. Like, what a great place to take my 2 more art histories. And then I took 2 religious art histories. I took a Greek art history. I took a philosophy. I took a international politics. I mean, it was, I couldn't eat enough of this culture. I loved it. And then I had set myself up with the woman from admissions at John Cabot, and she connected me to, her name is Gianna, and she's a costume designer, theater costume designer. And this is the woman that I ended up renting a room from for 6 months, and didn't speak a word of English. And I spoke about this much Italian. And I was just, I understood Italian more than I could speak it. I could comprehend more than I could speak. So anyway, oh my God, the food. What else is there to say? I mean, you can't, like, I've never just seen, there are just so many markets of fresh produce and fresh food and fish. And I mean, it's just lovely. And literally you walk around a corner and you see something else, and it's nothing is on a grid. And Rome is actually kind of a circle, right? Which can be confusing. And so it took me a while to kind of get my sea legs a little bit, to kind of get used to how the city was working. But it's very much a walking city. It's easy to get around. Even the buses, the public transportation is a cinch. If you miss your stop, you can just ding ding and jump off and catch something. I mean, because buses are running all the time. It's not like it is here where you have to wait half hour or whatever. Literally, you can wait 5 minutes and you're like, there's another bus. Where's it going? It doesn't matter. It's typically going in the direction you need to go. So I really I love public transportation. It was my jam, and then walking, of course. And I loved living minimally. So I could only take so much with me, right? And and you go to the grocery store and you have, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 options of different kinds of pasta. But then there's always fresh pasta in the deli, right? You go and you buy fresh pasta. Or or even just any sort of item the options are much smaller, which actually really makes life easier. Because when you think, like, when I think about shopping now, I'm going, like, I know the brands and I know what I like, but it's taken me a while to kind of minimize that, right? But if you're, I can't even imagine a foreigner coming to the Band-Aid aisle, right? And looking, going, I don't even know what to choose. Like, it would, anyway, so that I really liked. And the people and the men, they love, and it's not you would think it was kind of gross, but it's not. It's actually, they men, the Italian men really have an appreciation for women. It's not catcalling, it's not rude, it's not, I didn't look at it that way. I really felt like they really appreciate women. Like, they love the beauty of women. I'm like, that it was just a different vibe in that way. And then my parents, so I was there for 6 months. So at the 4.5 month mark, we had 3 weeks off for between quarters, and my parents came. Oh my God. I've never spent that much time with my parents, just myself, because I have 3 siblings. And that was a lot of fun. And it was really sweet to have, like, really uninterrupted time with them for meals and that kind of thing. And then we had our time alone. Like, I just kind of let them explore things they wanted to explore. And we had some really funny experiences where things happened, and we're just like, okay, we're Americans. We're not perfect, but we also didn't want to stick out like tourists. So in my mind, I'm going, we don't stick out. We were sticking out like tourists. So you just can't be foreign country and not stick out. It's just one of those things. So I think that gives you some insight into my experience. But yeah, it was, oh my God. Even though I was in school and I did have a little job on campus, I felt like I was on vacation for 6 months. It was so relaxing and lovely. And yeah. And it starts, so they had an unusual winter where they had a lot of rain. And so that was challenging because I didn't have enough warm clothes and et cetera, et cetera. So I had to figure some things out. And then March, I think middle of March, things started really warming up. And I called my mom. I just said, when you come, I need you to bring some summer things because it's getting warm and I cannot wear these long sleeve things or long pants. It was just warm. And the interesting thing is a lot of women have furs, right? And they wear them. They wear them all the way to almost June. And I'm like, oh my God, how can you stand? But I think they're just acclimated, to that. And that's what they do. And I was just like, wow. I can't even imagine wearing such an expensive item on these cobblestone streets that are just dusty and dirty all the time, right? That, and then in what I would consider too hot of weather to even tolerate that kind of thing. Anyway, yeah, I think that's I think that's what I want to share about my trip. Yeah, it was great.
Thank you. I found that so sweet and
Mm.
really just nourishing to my heart because I could see how you lit up as you were sharing about it. And the pieces I'm hearing around, just like every corner, like fresh stuff and this kind of exploration, discovery. You get on the wrong bus, you get on another one, or you miss like just this kind of it having your back, like that kind of city having your back. And I love walking cities like so much. It's really one of the reasons I left LA for New York City, was wanting to have that kind of lifestyle. And just also, I forget, right? I was an only child, so I always had that kind of attention from my parents, I should say. So for you to get to feel a little bit of what it's like to be an only child,
Yeah,
instead of there being four personalities around your parents, that feels like a gift.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. It was very sweet. And I will say, I wouldn't want it all the time, right? Because it's nice having a buffer. It's nice having another, and it's also nice just having a limited amount of time where you're right, I did feel like an only child. I hadn't thought of it in that way, but certainly to have all of their attention, I was like, wow, this is so unusual.
Lets you in on the mind of only children, right? Like,
Right,
well, but we're used to this level of attention. Why are other people getting attention? I think that it happens, right?
Yeah.
It connects me to just your share connects me to the times I've explored a city
Mm,
and felt alive, from the different languages going on, the different customs, the different foods to taste. For me, I'm big on beats. So when I was in Rio de Janeiro, I was hearing rhythms I'd never heard before. And so as a musician, it was like, what is that? How are they doing that? What is,
yeah,
these creations of our humanity, these artistic creations, and this kind of wandering spirit, just getting to wander, right? There wasn't really like an A to B. I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, we're in Paris, we want to go see Sacre Coeur, means we got to take all the steps up to Montmartre or whatever. But there was that feeling of flow that I'm connecting to, and you share that. Those are some of my favorite memories too. Just new places, new sensory experiences, not blending in, just humbling and good, I think, for us. I think we can get super comfortable here in the States, particularly in whatever section, like if we're in the Northeast or
right.
West Coast, it doesn't have you questioning. I'll put it this way, like when I was in Marseille, it had me questioning the hustle pace of New York City. When I was in New York City, it was just the pace. It's just
Right.
what everyone was doing.
Yeah.
And you almost didn't notice that, hey, everyone worked really hard and then they went out for drinks. And you go to a place like the south of France and it's like people are working, but they're mostly living.
Right.
Right. They're taking a 2-hour lunch break to go swim in a lagoon and eat some fresh pizza.
Yeah.
And then going back to a job that's important, but it's not the most important thing.
Right.
So it had me, this is, I think, the greatest gift of travel, really questioning some of the societal, in psychology, you call them introjections, but society's values that have been injected into me.
Mm-hmm.
And getting to kind of make better choices. I actually want to live somewhere by the water where people spend more time in water sports and swimming, who are, yes, they're working, but they're working for purpose and joy and meaning and not the workaholic, let's say, energy. So I guess all that to say, I think travel is a really valuable transformational tool as well.
Yeah, I saw, many different cultures within the Italian culture. And that was one of the things that I appreciated where, and I do believe, and I think it's still true that the unemployment rate is pretty high in Rome. But people were not working for the weekend, right? They weren't working Monday through Friday going, oh my God, thank God it's Friday and now we have Saturday and Sunday to rest or whatever. They really know how to live, to relax. They have a siesta every day. siesta every day. So school and jobs are closed from 12 to 2. So you can just sit and have a relaxing lunch. You can do whatever for, you got 2 hours every day. And I'm like, wow, how different that would be in the American culture. And I would be curious how people would feel about that. Like, would they appreciate that? Or would they feel like, oh my God, I can't take 2 hours? Because I know people, and I'm sure you know people too, who won't even leave their desk for lunch because they feel like I have so much to do. And I'm like, really? Like, what is so important that you can't leave your desk for a meal? That just, I feel so sad to me, because I'm like, I believe this is the way that I look at it, which is, what are you missing? If you're here at your desk and your colleagues, or some of your colleagues, I'm sure some of your colleagues are also in the same mindset, but then you have other colleagues who are taking the time, 30 minutes, a half hour, sometimes an hour and a half, whatever it is. But then you're missing that. If you're at your desk, you're missing something,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, you're missing maybe some more personal conversations
Mm-hmm.
where you can actually get to know someone. Yes, you're kind of still in the work environment if you're going out to lunch with your colleagues, but maybe you're talking about things other than work.
I mean, maybe you're building friendships
and building relationships. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I love this. My sense is if we had that here, and I think it's different, right? If it became a collective thing, like you said, it's one thing if you're like, I'm going to take 12 to 2 off, but the world is still turning and everyone else is at their desks. But if we had that kind of culture where it's like, hey, we're all doing that, so permission,
right?
There's permission granted in that. And my sense is that at first people would not know what to do with themselves. Those who are, scrolling and or working really hard or don't know how to hang out for 15 seconds quietly, right? There is a gear we've been thrown into,
right,
by our society. And I think the return on that investment, if you stick with it, is more creativity, more energy, more fuel, all the productivity stuff, and I look at high performance habits and Brendan Burchard, for example, embedded in it is rest, replenishment, in order to have focus and creativity. High performance is not about, I've got to work 16-hour days. It's like, how do I work 6 hours in such a focused and thoughtful manner that I have freedom because I have discipline, right? And I see this particularly with my clients, which is such a gift to share this stuff with them, is like, they want to be free now by having no organization or schedule or whatever. And it's like, but are you really free? And then somehow you're scattered for 14 hours, when you could be working for 6 and then enjoying life for 8.
Right.
So how free are you in the short-term gratification?
It's a great question.
Right? Versus the long-term satisfaction. I mean, I've spent 10 years studying high performance habits, and with every piece of organization and discipline, I actually have more time. And you know me, I end up with more passions and more things to do. So we're working on that piece. But there's something to be said about being able to close the laptop at a certain time, know I've done the best I could do, that I really rocked what I had intended to, and that I didn't have scattered energy the whole day. That doesn't serve me. And the irony is, if you left me to my own devices, I can be pretty liminal and just be like, oh, be on the flowers, oh, clouds, right? And it's like, that's wonderful to a point, but I need structure so that it's not even achievement. What would I say? I've contributed. I've contributed what I said I wanted to contribute. Because that feels really good to me. And that's long-term satisfaction and happiness to me. But it's interesting because I'm going to say the first time Debbie Ford said it to me, she said, if you want an extraordinary life, it's going to require radical discipline. And I was like, oh, that sounds awful. Right? Which is the reaction most of my clients have, because the word discipline,
Right,
fun,
right.
and yet it's like, but it's freedom.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, and I know that's not the topic we're totally jumping on, but I'm wondering if there's anything you want to add to that, or something that resonates around discipline, freedom.
Well, I think, first of all, I think we need to widen our scope, our mental scope around the word discipline. Right. And so it takes discipline to create a vacation. So there's all this planning that goes into it, which is a discipline, right? And then the reward is the vacation. But there's a lot of work that goes into getting to the place, right? Same way with setting up a coffee date with a girlfriend. Okay, so it takes conversation, it takes looking at the calendar. It's not as much work or not as much discipline as a vacation, but it takes planning, and planning takes, commitment and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I believe that, like, in the word radical itself, it just kind of feels like, oh, well, do I want to use that word? But really, when we settle into it, it's a really great word, because I feel like it heightens the importance of, if you will, we've talked about radical honesty, and that doesn't mean brutal. That's very different than brutal honesty, right? It's just being radically honest with the other person, or loving radically, or trusting radically. There are just a lot of ways that you can use that. And same way with discipline, to get back to where we were. So yeah, I feel like, there are days where I don't have a lot of structure, but so what I do is I'm disciplined enough to create some structure in my day. I'm like, okay, so, because I'm on my screen a lot, and I'm working, and I'm creating content and creating copy, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, okay, so my discipline, because I can literally get lost for hours and not think about it. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I gotta pee. I gotta run to the toilet, right? Or I have not been off of my ass for 2 hours. I need to stand up, I need to stretch, I need to move, get some blood flowing, whatever it is. And that's discipline too. So even though it's not structured, I mentally have to structure it in my day. And we're all on our own path, we're on our disciplines, whatever they are, but those things are really important. And I didn't get to this place just kind of willy-nilly. It's something that I've really had to work at, because, and then the other thing that, of course, that I have structured into my day is, sacred quietness, just being quiet and going within. And I know for sure that every time I do that, there are days when I'm like, I can't, because it's so good and so rich and so yummy. I can't believe the clarity. Sometimes I'm like, that's some good stuff. Like if I'm struggling with a decision, or if I'm struggling with copy, trying to put a sentence together, trying to put a paragraph, whatever it is, if I take a moment to get quiet and just use that sacred quietness, sacred, what's the term that we use? Oh my God.
Pause.
Thank you. The sacred pause. Thank you. That can be a real lifesaver. Because if I don't do that, and I continue to try to think, okay, what's a better word, or what should I do here, or whatever, I can really spin out. And I'm like, I don't want to do that, because I do my best work and my best focusing when I take that time. And that is that's part of the curriculum, if you will. It's part of the structure. Yeah.
I love that, we're kind of stumbling upon this accidentally, right? But like, I love that you're distinguishing between there's the radical discipline of like being productive, right? Like there's things you say are important to you. Are you prioritizing them? Are you doing them? Are you moving the needle on your life in the direction you say you want, right? But what I really appreciate that you're sharing is also the radical discipline of taking breaks and replenishing, because that's a place I'm working on where like today, earlier this morning, I had maybe a little over a half hour, but there's a part of me that wanted to like get into things. And I was like, you need to get outside. Like, yes, would it feel satisfying on some level to get some of this work done? Sure. But the long haul is a full day. And being restored for the week and the weekend and all the things, right? So it's like a bigger view. And it was like the best thing I could do with this 30 minutes is get outside, get moving, go enjoy the water. It's just beautiful today with the clouds, and breathe and be in that stillness and in that solitude, but not just in the house working. And that's a different form of radical discipline that is now more of the focus for me, because the other one of like, here are the things I say are important. This is the order I'm doing them in. They get done every day. That feels like on autopilot now. It means taking 10 years of crafting that, right? But this other place is now emerging around, let me ask Heidi for some extra time between my 4 o'clock and my 5 o'clock, right? Let me be kind to myself here. I think it's a huge kindness that we're talking about. And you don't have to say yes to everything, and you should take time for yourself. And it actually benefits everyone if you're not burned out.
It does. And it's a boundary you're creating for yourself. Yeah.
Do we want to pivot to our other topic? I just noticed the time, but I'm also curious.
Yeah. So I think we started at like 10 of.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we did.
I hear you, and I don't necessarily want to go an hour and a half.
We're
like,
not going an hour and a half.
From where we started, like our time.
Oh. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to move into the next, or do we just kind of want to wrap this up?
I'm happy to go a little longer. Yeah, I think it was an important convo. I'm happy to, I guess gently touch on it. Maybe we come back to it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where do we want to begin?
Well, I guess we had this convo amongst ourselves initially,
Yeah.
right? And the convo we're talking about is around body image, how you and I each deal with that.
Yeah.
And maybe just our awareness that it's not just us, so we want to share it.
Yeah.
Right, in hopes that it helps people have a little more kindness and grace with themselves.
Right.
Yeah, so I can share my original story briefly around one day just having a couple clients cancel in a way that gave me this like 4-hour window that I hadn't expected on a beautiful early summer day, and being like, I want to go to the pool and I want to swim and I want to be a mermaid, and I just want to like feel the sun and feel like, especially with the cool water over my shoulders, and hadn't had a lot of that yet because we were just getting into summer. And it was the first time I was putting on a bathing suit. Post winter, it's a little rough, right? Getting like reacquainting with, at least I'll speak for me, with my body after the winter and after a 2-year COVID setup, right? And I remember getting to the pool, and in previous, times in my life, especially when I lived in LA, it's like everyone else looked like a model, and then I felt weird about showing my body, and I kind of was like, but this scenario is like the universe showing me women who looked like me, women of color, with all shapes and sizes, like completely just comfortable, or at least appearing so. I don't know their inner dialogue, but appearing so. And I could not like get my dress off and sit in my bathing suit. I was having like such a freeze response to it because of other people being there and noticing how I felt about my body in that moment. And I don't think I felt shame so much as I felt sadness. I never got in the pool. And my whole thing was about like going and frolicking in the pool. And it caught me off guard. And it also was like, well, of course, right? You haven't looked at this. And that's been a bit of a journey the last 2 months since that happened. So a journey of like, can you love yourself? You know, and do you have really unreasonable expectations of your body type? And where were those born?
Right.
And are those really yours to carry? And
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you been back to the pool?
I haven't been back to that pool, but I've been to many a pool since.
Oh.
Yes.
And how was that?
Different, I think, with that awareness. You know, the first time it was just a little blindsiding that it was such a deep resistance. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made a real conscious choice. One, that I'm going to go back. Two, that I'm going to have a little more body acceptance. And now it's morphing into some real body love because my body's really strong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have energy all day. I can do things that are, I think, the strongest I've ever been. Though I don't look like my, 20-year-old lanky self, I was like malnourished. You know what I mean? So for me to look like the very skinny, lanky thing I thought I wanted to be, I nearly had to starve myself as a teenager. Like eat a tangerine and then work out for 2 hours. I don't want to live that way.
Yeah.
Right? I want to live in this luxurious, like, oh, we're getting a shrimp scampi margarita pizza that's out of the fire oven, at our local place, and we're going to enjoy it. And yes, there's a little bit extra on me, but man, like la dolce vita, like, so it's been a full, not a complete full circle, but there's a place where I'm going to say really proud of my body.
Mm-hmm.
For the immense amount of strength and resilience it has. Yeah. And only really very recently letting go of it needing to look the way it looked, the way other people look, Yeah. But it's been a journey.
It is a journey for sure. Yeah.
What about you? Or like what's landing or what are you resonating with?
Yeah. So I think, well, I feel like my journey is lifelong. Because it is. So I think that I had shared with you that I'm sure I shared with you that I was in awe of seeing women who my size or bigger than me, whatever, wearing really form-fitting clothes or like a crop top, right? And their belly is exposed. And I'm just like, wow, could I ever, like, I remember in the moment, I asked myself, I'm like, could I ever do that? Would I ever have the nerve to do that? Would I ever not feel self-conscious doing that? Like all this stuff came up for me and I was like, wow. And, I'm aware, I mean, on camera, I don't know how big my arms look, but, my arms really are not that big. Like I'm like, maybe it's my perception. I don't know, like it's all our perception, right? And I keep thinking to myself, man, maybe I shouldn't wear all, like sleeveless tops or whatever. And I'm like, who the hell, who's saying that? I'm saying that, like no one else is judging that. I'm the one judging that. So what I realize is that not only do I have to learn to see myself differently, because what I do know to be true is that we see ourselves much more harshly and with a lot more judgment and a lot more shame and guilt and all that kind of crap than other people do. And I'm like, wow, if I could only see myself like that person, just one other person who sees me differently in a good way, that would certainly start to shift things, you know? And so, and I will say it is helpful when I hear people like, they'll say, I haven't seen you for a while, you look good. And I'm going, no, I don't. Right? Like that's my response. Immediately, I don't say it out loud, but I'm thinking, they're just being nice. And I'm like, no, I don't think that people compliment people bullshit. Like, I just don't think that people lie when they're complimenting them. If they don't have anything nice to say, I think they would just keep their mouth shut, right? Like, I think that's more true than the other. So, yeah, I'm like, maybe I'm not as big as I think I am, you know? And I know that millions, and I also know the other end of the spectrum, which is people who have eating disorders and are starving themselves. And I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful that I'm not that, right? Like that I don't have an eating disorder and that I'm healthy, like I eat food, like it's, yeah, I feel like it's just an ongoing back and forth and back and forth. And when I see women who are just gloriously showing themselves and living and not giving a shit about that, I feel really like I feel excited and I feel more inspired to live my truth and live more fully in who I am. And yeah, like talk about living more authentically, right? That's a chapter.
Oh
Right there.
yeah. I
Yeah.
love this too, because you're reminding me of, again, like women of color that I see, when I go to the park and stuff, and like whether it's the short shorts, the cute top, or like the snug top or whatever. And I just kind of go, because I've sort of gotten used to just having things that flow and that don't necessarily show my shape in that way. And I like that they have like the verve for
Me
that.
too.
And the place that I really felt most impacted, I think, was in Rio, because I saw, again, more women my size, right? More women like my height, my size, like more bronzed, whatever, who were joyfully in their bikini. I'm talking like, would have been like, what's the problem? Not even this level that we're trying to backpedal out of.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more of like, I love my body and I love this beautiful color on my body and I'm, loving the ocean, like period. Without this, oh, are my thighs too thick? Or should I be wearing like this sort of body shaming, right? And I wish I had learned about like body dysmorphia as a teenager, because I didn't know I even had it. I was a size 4.
Oh.
And I look in the mirror and think like I'm a whale, I'm fat. And mind you, as an endomorph, which is more of that athletic, curvy build,
Mhm.
the girls at school were all those, I want to say the ectomorphs. So like the tall, lanky, like white girls, right? And I kept trying to get there, but there was no there to get to because I just was not built that way. And all the women in my family have, large breasts, curviness. They don't look like Gwyneth Paltrow, right? And last I checked, most men aren't like looking for that boyish, lanky thing anyway. But all of the societal branding is like 6'4" and 120 pounds, right? It's just so bizarre. 6'1" at least. The models. And I read this book by Jamie Kernalima. It was about her rise to being a billionaire in the cosmetic industry.
Mm.
And it was just, there's like a little engine that could. So it was a really sweet concept. But what I didn't know, she was the first female CEO in the cosmetics industry.
Wow.
Shocking.
Yeah.
What that connected me to was the fact that all the cosmetic information that I'd been handed since I was 4 coming to this country, watching, Victoria's Secrets models and all the things, was delivered by men.
Yeah.
Delivered by men either around their fantasies or delivered by them to create scarcity and shame and purchasing power over here.
Right.
I had no idea that so much of what we were being sold was probably coming from young men in high places of power without a whole lot of conscious awareness or like a responsible consciousness around it.
Yeah.
And yet that went into my nervous system like a sponge at that young of an age. You're like, one day I'll be tall and look like that, because that's what I thought women look like, and it's a lot to unlearn.
Yeah.
To come back home to myself.
Right.
But it's worth the freedom.
100% worth your freedom. Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard, and I don't know how to share with people to free themselves of it, because it's in our faces 24/7, all the time, right? And yeah, I don't know how to tell people to do that, because I struggle with it myself, but I am aware, I would say I'm more aware than I was even 5 years ago of what I am putting into my system, not just food. I'm talking about what I'm absorbing visually and audibly, and is that even a word?
I like it. Yeah.
Auditorily. But yeah, I mean, it all really makes a difference. It really does. And so, yeah, and if there's one thing to maybe, one way you can start the process, start the journey of unlearning, is to stop buying the beauty magazines.
The what magazines?
The beauty magazines.
The beauty magazines, yeah.
Stop buying them.
Stop putting that into your system as though it's the gospel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
And if you want to read, if you're like, well, I'm buying it for the articles, get the article online. Get it without pictures, get it online. Because it's the pictures that we see, and everything is photoshopped. Every single thing is photoshopped. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we think, because we're like, oh, that's real. Nothing is fucking real. It's not real.
Maybe watch some of the Photoshop videos too, right? Because that will help you out too, is to see like where this person goes from having pimples and freckles and this and that and the other to just being
a completely flawless face.
And the fact that that's done for resolution and billboards and other things, but it's certainly not the human. I remember Cindy Crawford in the 80s saying, I wish I looked like Cindy Crawford when I woke up in the morning.
Right.
And I loved that realness, because people were saying, how do you this? And she's like, I don't wake up like this. This is work and then Photoshop and stuff.
Right.
Which leads me to, I think, the fact that this is an ongoing journey. Right. And I feel like I've made some headway. One of the things that helped me, in case it serves someone, is when I sat with, if I didn't have a scale and I didn't have a mirror, just I'm thinking 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
I was a woman in like primal village, setup, without a scale, without a mirror. And I only had how I feel in my body, how my energy flows, how alive and how much rapture and how animated I can be. I would think I'm kicking ass.
Yeah.
Because I feel good all the time, almost all the time, right? Hormones, exception of hormones. if I was going by how the wattage in my body is,
Yeah.
I would be so proud of this body. And so
Yeah.
that's the metrics for me,
Yeah.
is remembering that like millions of processes are happening every day flawlessly without my input. And I get to have this, I think when I connected it to like, this vessel lets me live life. And I love all the things I get to see and smell and, touch. And it became a very sacred process compared to like, what's my weight? What are my measurements? Kind of faulty metrics anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that comes up for me is in the cosmetic industry, how the term ageless has been coined. I'm like, there's no such thing. There's no such thing.
Why are we trying to be ageless anyway?
I don't know. But that's another topic for another time. But I'm just like, that is really very present in the cosmetic industry.
Huge. Yeah, I have a lotion that I love, a face lotion. It's just very moisturizing for my sensitive skin. And there was one moment I looked at it and it said youth preserving. And I was like, why is this a thing? I just want really good hydration.
Yeah.
And so the branding, yeah. Maybe we can find
Right.
a guest who could support us around some of that. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
You ready for us to pivot?
I'm ready to pivot.
Okay, I picked one because it came out and I already picked it. Is that okay?
Right. Yep.
I like the question. Okay. What do you think I appreciate the most right now in my life?
What do I think that you appreciate the most right now in your life? I think that you appreciate most the work that you've done in yourself, the education that you have garnered from the relationship school. I think you appreciate how differently you're doing your relationships. I think you appreciate how well you're handling challenging the challenges of some family stuff. And I think that you also really appreciate how differently you're doing things with honey. Yeah, I really do.
Really, really seen that. Thank you for that reflection. Yeah, spot on. I feel really proud of how much my character is being forged in all of those ways. Yeah. I love that you get me there. That feels really good. Thanks, friend.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I have to answer for you. What do I think you are most appreciating about your life right now? I think in a similar vein, the relational skills and communication skills that you're putting into practice to be a relational leader in some of your relationships that are high stakes and important. Your ability to overcome, I'm going to say, difficult chronic roles and show up differently with people so that it's not more of the same for you. I think your discernment of who's inner circle and who's not, I've noticed has been prevalent. And your awareness that you don't need all the stuff you've got, and that it's really healthy to purge pieces that no longer serve or feel good. Seems like a very conscious act of care for yourself. And then I really, because I don't hear about this nearly as much, but I know it's there, is your guidance and your allyship when you are supporting students and having more empathy and bedside manner and care, because they're going to launch in the world and be the people, you know, holding those who don't feel well. So just like I feel an uprightness in my spine, like that you are a veteran of that you can bring it, that you have enough to help. You have enough knowledge there, emotional intelligence, to help not just those students, but everyone that's going to cross their path. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know that I would have named all those things, but thank you for seeing me in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Appreciate that.
Thanks, friend. So sweet to be with you.
Likewise.
I love where we go together.
I'm amazed at where we go together. I am, because it's just, it surprises me all the time. And I'm like, and this is what we do. Yeah.
And yeah, to friendships looking like this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And letting this be the standard.
Let this be the standard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people, know what you want. Be really clear about who you're letting in your life and work on it. It's worth it. It's 100% worth it. Yeah.
And you're worth it, right? To have those really meaningful relationships and healthy relationships.
Yes. Yes.
Lots of love. Thanks everyone for watching. If anything lands for you, or you have questions, or you're struggling with something, please drop a line in the chat, in the comments. We're here and we read every one of them, and would just love to know if this has supported you, or if there's other topics that you're just would like us to touch upon.
Until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.